It's my pleasure to introduce my friend, the Minister of Labor, Employment, and Workforce Development. I think I rearranged those words in there because I like labor first. The Minister Patty Hadju is the member from Thunder Bay, Superior North, which is my hometown. I didn't get her bio, and I went, oh, that's an opportunity, because what I can say to you is one reason why she's my friend. We worked together in Thunder Bay on our poverty reduction strategy, and she came into a meeting one morning just so upset. And, Patty, what's going on? And she was so upset because at the time she was working as the ED at our shelter house in Thunder Bay, our largest homeless shelter in Thunder Bay. And one of the folks that they support was taken to the hospital where they were effectively denied treatment because they were Indigenous. And the folks at the hospital went, oh yeah, we know what Indigenous people are like. They're just drunk and really, they don't need health care, they just need to sleep it off. And that's not the way our society should be operating. And to know now, here's this person that's got this heart that really understands and trying to create a more inclusive society is now our minister with increasing power and ability just really excites me. I got to say, I'm not a liberal, so I'm not doing this as a liberal, but please welcome our Minister Patty Hadju.
Thank you. Well, he's not a liberal yet. Listen, the one thing I can say about Steve is that we've worked, as Steve's mentioned, we worked really closely together for many years. It's an honor to be here with you on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. And the story that he tells, I could spend my entire 15 minutes talking about the discrimination in the healthcare system, and in fact, the rage, he's absolutely right, the rage that I felt when people, not just because of their cultural background, indigeneity, but because of the fact they were substance users on top of that, often chronic addiction, which is considered a disability, actually, under the Ontario Human Rights Codes, and were denied service based on their disability, in fact. On top of that, layer on poverty and Indigenous, and you get a whole bunch of situations where maybe you've seen this in your own community. And it led to outcomes as extreme as death. So I, again, can't speak, I wish I could speak for 15 minutes about that, but that isn't really the topic of my conversation, although it certainly does set the stage very well for the kinds of discrimination that people face in the workplace all the time when they are living with a disability, and why it is that we need to move forward to make sure that that's eliminated and that we have full participation of every Canadian to the best of their ability, to the extent that they want to participate. And I think that your theme, developing a vision and strategy for the future, is definitely aligned with our focus, because what we've seen and why I ran for government, liberal or otherwise, was definitely a decade of darkness, definitely a time where very little focus was placed on people that a certain ideology believes is disposable. And whether that was Indigenous people, people with disabilities, newcomers in some cases, or even women. My previous portfolio was Minister of Status of Women. And so we believe that, liberals and the Liberal government, that not only is it a basic human right to be able to fully participate in the society in which you live with all that comes with that, but that our agenda of growing the middle class, of having a prosperous country, of having a thriving economy, we just can't simply do that if we leave so much talent behind. And that's in fact what we're doing. We're defeating our own goal of a thriving middle class if we don't fully leverage all of the human talent that we have in this country. We have to have opportunities for people to get those good paying jobs and to be positioned for success in the workforce, regardless of their circumstances, of where they live in the country and what challenges they may have and where, what their cultural or faith background is. We can't keep our current rate of growth. We can't keep the pace of growth that we hope to see if we leave talent behind. And so that's a big part of my job. A big part of my job is making sure that there are opportunities for people that traditionally are discriminated against in the workplace and traditionally have had a hard time seeking employment. And so I think that smart employers know this. I think there are, unfortunately, not enough of them out there, but I think that there are some very smart employers who have realized that they're missing out on that opportunity and been thoughtful about how they move forward in engaging their entire organization, from recruitment all the way through interviewing to ensuring the retention of people that have disabilities that often are underrepresented in their sectors. And they see it because as an economic argument. They see it because they know that people with disabilities, for example, have some of the highest levels of education in Canada, and it's a real missed opportunity if you don't tap into that talent and you don't bring people like that into your organization. And they see it as the only way, in some cases, to get that competitive edge. Now, our government's talked a lot about diversity, and that's because we know that it allows us to examine these tough problems that we face as a country together through a variety of different lenses. And, I can tell you that sharing a seat at that cabinet table, much has been made about the gender diversity of the cabinet, and for sure that's quite unique, sadly, in 2015, that 50% would be women. But not as much conversation about the other kinds of diversity. People with disabilities, some stated, some not, people with different faith groups, people of different ages, people of different cultural backgrounds, and all of that difference, I can tell you, adds a richness to the decision-making that we make together. Because I've never been a quadriplegic, so I have no idea the challenges that my colleague, who I understand addressed you earlier this morning, faces in his everyday life, but I sure am getting to know some of those challenges through the lens of his contributions. And I certainly don't know what it's like to be a Muslim in this country, although I suspect it's growing increasingly unpleasant as a result of our colleagues across the hall's efforts. But I can hear firsthand from my colleagues about the challenges that they may face in their country. And so the diversity that we see is really critical to growth. It's critical to prosperity. It's critical to democracy. And so we continue to work on that. And so from my portfolio, how I'm doing it is really through how I've done all my work, which is working in partnership. I don't believe that government has all the answers. I don't believe that bureaucrats have all the answers, and I think we can become very insular, especially when you have a bunch of people doing the same thing, and there's programs, and there's setup, and there's sort of a system, If you apply for your grant, and the same people review the grant, and the same people screen the grant, and we have excellent public servants all across this country, but there's a certain system that happens. And so I've been encouraging my team to rely heavily on working in partnership with organizations and ensuring that we don't move forward on our own in a path that doesn't actually reflect the real needs of the communities in which we're trying to serve. And in the world that I come from, in the world of substance use, we used to call that not about us, without us. That's about not designing programs from above that actually don't reflect the needs of the people that they're intended to serve. And so my colleague talked about the new federal accessibility legislation designed with people that are living with disabilities that had extensive consultation and input. Certainly, we've insisted that the labor market development agreements, which is essentially the federal transfer of training dollars to provinces, continue to carve out a designated ratio for skills training with people with disabilities. And of course, we continue to fund programs like SkillsLink that help people with disabilities get training and on-the-job experience. But what's important is that I've also asked my department to go through the process of understanding unintentional bias from the top down, so that from the deputy minister level all the way through to the grant reviewers and the people that do all the kind of assessments will have an understanding of the lens that they are looking at those grant proposals through. That they will understand and have the tools to understand their own inherent bias that they carry. Because of course we all have our own realities. And just as the example I gave you with my colleague at the cabinet table, who I've never had his experience, oftentimes those biases aren't intentional. They're not intentionally mean-spirited or meant to screen out one group or another. But it's because we look at the world based on our own experiences. It's human nature. And so with a process of ESDC going through unintentional bias training, I think that we're going to get to more equitable decisions. It's a long time coming, and it's a little bit of a lengthy process. But that's what needs to happen, I think, across all governments in Canada. Certainly, I'm very proud of ESDC for leading the way and agreeing to take this on. We also are being intentional in the way that we're recruiting employers to be our ally. And so we have a number of streams of funding that are new. One of them is the union-based training money that has just closed. This will support the organized labor movement to train people in the skilled trades, provide them support to purchase up-to-date equipment, but also there's a second stream of funding around innovation to get underrepresented sectors into the trades. And so this would include women, people with disabilities, newcomers, and Indigenous people. The Student Work Placement Program similarly has an incentive so that employers are thoughtfully considering how they include people with disabilities and the other groups that are underrepresented in the STEM and business sectors. And we do this by additional incentives. Because I think employers need to step up with us. And I think that, certainly we have a role as government in many ways, legislatively and otherwise, but we also have to help those employers who are maybe not as smart as the ones that I told you about before, that understand that there's an opportunity and incent them to be partners as well. So I really look forward to the results of your deliberations. I know Steve will keep me abreast. I'm very, very proud of Steve and his efforts in our community. And it's an honor to be here today, and I'm very grateful to come and be able to give you a few words about how we're working with you in partnership. And certainly our office remains open, so if there's anything that you have a burning desire to talk about, please don't hesitate to reach out to my team, and we'll make sure that we get you an answer. Thank you.